Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee. I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm excited to be here. If you're watching on YouTube, I do this with my hands a lot. I know it's on my podcast art. And when we sold our house, okay, little story here. When we sold our house to move to Florida a couple of years ago, one of our real estate agents came by afterwards and said, I want to take a picture of you and your husband with a sign that says sold, and then she puts it on her Instagram or whatever. And I put my hand out to the side like this. And I don't know what else I did. And one of my daughters said, of course, that's what you did, Mom. It's how I express myself. So if you move with your hands, it might be part of your hyperactive impulse type of ADHD. It's probably mine, but anyway, I'm excited to be here. That's one of my ways of showing it. And I'm here today to talk to you more about why it is difficult for people with ADHD. I'm specifically talking about women to process information, whether it's written, audible, all forms, especially the hearing part, because a lot of people give their instructions or give us information through their voices by talking to us. It doesn't always make sense, but it doesn't always make sense seeing it either. And quite honestly, I don't remember everything that I covered last time, but I do have a second part ready for you today. And so if there's any crossover, there might be, but talking about today that just the overall picture. If you have a problem processing information, it doesn't mean that you're not smart and you know that your IQ is not high. And even if your IQ isn't high, I don't know what my IQ is. It's never like I've ever measured or anything. But it's not a measure of intelligence. It's not a measure of your ability to learn. It's just a matter of how you learn, how you retain, how you keep track of information that comes in. And sometimes when you have multiple steps, lots of information, you cannot put it in, you cannot store it, or even make sense of it in order, or even take in every part of it to even make order out of it. So if somebody is explaining something to you, I talk about the counter orders, the restaurants where you walk up to the counter and order. If it's new to you, if you're looking up at the counter and you're looking up at the wall and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do you serve here? It's a Mexican restaurant, but you don't know what they sell, if it's just in meals, if it's a la carte, what the prices are. And looking, at least for me, looking at an actual menu, they usually have it organized better than on a wall, because a wall might even have, and here are the specials, or they just might have it grouped differently than what you think. And you're looking at all of it at once. If you have a menu, you can either look at the front or the back, or open it up and turn the page. And places like Cheesecake Factory have like a 20-page menu. The first time I went there, I was like, whoa, this is like a book. But all of that causes your brain to need to organize the information that's coming in. And if it's not coming in a way that makes sense to you, then of course you're either going to just kind of feel scrambled in your head, or feel like it causes you to take out some information that's not accurate and think, oh, well, then it must be this way. And you might even be asking, so does that mean? And they say, no. So it can be confusing. And if you're out in public, if you're in a situation where there are people waiting for you, or you feel like there's a time frame with it, it can be stressful. It can be hard. If it's your own phone and you get a text, and especially if you see the last part, if they wrote a really long one at the bottom, you read that first and you're kind of like, wait, what? And you look through, or you get somebody's comment in a group text and you're trying to make sense of it. For me, the smaller the space that I'm looking at, because I don't just have a problem bringing in information that I hear. I have to take that information that I hear, and it's like I'm translating it into my brain so that I can store it, so I can make sense of it, so I can remember it, or at least make use of it. I may not remember it forever, but I might make use of it to be able to get from point A to point B, to be able to go down the hall, turn to the left, and the bathroom's on the right or something like that. So it may not be something I remember forever, but just long enough, for the working memory is long enough to be able to get you to be able to do what you need to do with it. And sometimes that's with the hearing part, with just making sense of something that comes in to your brain through listening. But with the seeing, it can be tricky too. It might be so much information in an email that you just pick out a certain part. It might be that you can read an email and make sense of it on a computer screen because it's bigger and you have wider spaces for the sentences. This is me. If it's a narrower space like a phone, it's harder for me to make sense of it. Although I've made mistakes with both, where I've run on the assumption from what I read in an email or a website or something. And I've had inaccuracies with both. Like, oh, didn't you read the email? Or didn't you know? Well, yeah, I did. But you're not always able to make sense of it from just looking at it. And you're not always looking at it when there's not something else on your mind. Or now that we have mobile phones and things, you might get an email that's important, but you get it while you're out in public or you're at the store, you're checking your emails because you're online and you're thinking, just going to check what's on my phone. And what is happening, the distractions with your brain, may affect also how much you even remember you received that email or how much you got from it. And the little strategy that I use for this is if you have an email, you're not able to process it in that moment for whatever reason, it's on your phone and you know, even if you're at home, like I need to see this on my computer, or somebody else is talking to you. Maybe you shouldn't be looking at your phone anyway if somebody else is talking to you, but you might be. But something else is going on and you realize, oh, I can't look at this now, or I don't have time to look into this right now. This is something I need to look at this bill. There's an error with this bill. I need to look at this when I get home. Go into the little envelope and open it back up like it's unread, because then you'll see it there later. Or set yourself an alarm to look into that later, whatever it is. If you can give yourself some little notice, it just doesn't get buried and lost, because you may never, ever remember that person wrote to you. And what's funny with things like that, especially if it's a personal obligation, if it's someone I need to write back with, which I can think of one person right now, I will think about it when I can't possibly do it, and then I don't remember again until either just before I wake up, oh, well, yeah, I didn't do that yesterday, or after the lights are out, I'm in bed. Oh, yeah. And it's probably because my brain is a little more relaxed and I can remember. But if I can't act on it right then, it's not very helpful. So I did write back to that person immediately after saying, I don't have time to respond fully right now, but I will tomorrow morning. I shouldn't have said I will tomorrow morning. That's my mistake. I'm learning this right now. I thought I was doing a good thing by saying I'll write more later, but honestly, I completely forgot the next morning. And and I've remembered maybe once or twice each day since. And I'm considering not writing back. I'm considering making either a video or an audio to reply, because it's so much easier. It's so much easier. If you have access to Loom or something like that, I have an app. It's a Google Chrome app called Vento. And it's a one-time purchase. I don't know if it's still available, but it's a lifetime deal. And it's like Loom, where you just have it on your browser and you can record a video of yourself talking or something, like you talking with the screen or something like that. Anyway, you can email it pretty easily. It just has a link to it, but I think that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, so there are a lot of things that won't get into our brains. And circumstances can be part of it, but also if you have ADHD, your working memory isn't functioning the same as neurotypical people or a lot of people. And without that, you are struggling to hold on to that information. It's like you wrote a Post-it. Well, not really. It's like somebody handed you a note, because the Post-it is supposed to stick. Sometimes they fall down. So I was going to say it's like if you wrote a Post-it and you put it up and it fell down. But you may not even get to the point in your mind of writing it down in your mind. It might be like somebody else handed you that Post-it, and it either never got put up or it didn't stay up because you weren't able to hold on to that step or that piece of information. And what is helpful is if your brain can make a mental picture of information. And a lot of times when people give you instructions, there isn't a picture to go with it. If somebody's talking to you, let's say you go to a workshop or you go to church, if you're in a group situation where there is a speaker, and if that person is speaking and says, there are 5 things that you need to do to be able to wash your car, whatever it is. Okay, there's 5 things. And they're not going to say that at church. but anyway, they tell you there's 5 things to do. And you're thinking, okay, what are the 5 things? And you can make a mental picture of that, because they might say, make sure you have a hose for your water outside. And you're like, oh yeah, hose, I already have that, check. And you can make a mental picture of that because you're familiar with water, with a towel, with a little bit of soap, with a bucket. That's how I wash a car. So if I were to make a YouTube video about that, each thing that I would talk about is something that you're familiar with. And you would either be able to say, yeah, I can do that. Or you might say, no, I live in an apartment. I don't have a hose. I guess I need to drive to the car wash. So you could figure that out in your mind right then. But if I were to do something that was more principle-based or step-based by ideas, these are the 4 steps to build a habit. This is what you need to do. First, you need to make a commitment. You need to refine the idea. You need to, maybe I'm giving you 5 things, but all of those things are, in my mind, I call them like spatial. They're not concrete. They're more of an idea than a picture. So sometimes people give acronyms, like SAFE, the S stands for this, or the A stands for that. And sometimes that's the picture, is just the word safe. But if I were to tell you a story about how I built a habit and how I realized there were these 4 things that were essential to do, and I tell you the whole story about it, the story is something that you can get a picture of easier. You can either picture me as the person in the book that's doing those things, or I feel like a lot of times people, especially women with ADHD, making assumptions here, but I feel like we have an ability to take information and apply it to ourselves. That's why we love to talk so much, because we always have things to talk about. If you're a person with ADHD who loves to share, because when you hear information, you think, oh yeah, that's like this. Oh yeah, that's like that. And you apply it to what your experience is, or, oh yeah, my mom had that happen. And all of that is building a picture in your mind, and it helps you understand it. It helps you remember it. It helps you make sense of it. And it's just really helpful to have that picture. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So if you already have that picture in your mind, then you can come up with the steps, whether the words match what the other person said. The S that's safe, it starts with the S. You might have another word that's kind of same thing. It doesn't have to be that word. So the picture is really helpful, where just a factual verbal instruction could go in one ear and out the other. This is how you play Monopoly. If you never played Monopoly for the first time, it's nice that they have little houses, and you're like, so, I can put a house here. That helps you see a picture. But if you were just driving home with somebody, you'd never played the Monopoly board game before, and they said that we're going to play this game, we're going to put out a board, and you're like, a board, and you're thinking of a piece of wood because you've never played a game. Maybe you're from somewhere that doesn't have access to things like that. Maybe it doesn't seem possible where you live, but it is possible where a lot of people live. So our brains need to create these pictures to make sense of it, and having that ability to just create the picture on the spot or just remember information. Some people just say it back to someone. My son is like that. He has an amazing brain, and he is taught something, he repeats it, he often shares it with someone else. It's in there. It's in there. Not for me. It's more like when I share it with people, then I realize what's missing. I realize I've done that before, where a friend will even tell me a story or an experience on Marco Polo. So that's something that I can listen to again. And then I'll say to my husband, oh my goodness, my friend had this amazing experience. I'll start to say it to him partway through. I'll think, I don't remember that part. I'll go back and listen. And I'll start to tell it again. I'll realize, I forgot something else. I forgot something else. So there are repetition is important, but it's also important to get the information in there. And if your mind wanders, there's another reason with ADHD that while you're listening to a story, because you can make your own connection with it, that can take you somewhere else. Or if you're curious, I get curious. Someone could be telling me a story that's making complete sense, and they're telling me how they swam in a creek and they jumped off a rock, and I start to think, I wonder if that creek was in California. And then I start to remember when I was little and we used to play along the creek and we'd swing off a rope and to the water, whatever. That can take you away too. We could, as my mom would say, I could write a book about being late. We could write a book about why we get distracted or why information doesn't go into our brains. But there are brain reasons, and then there are distraction reasons for sure. There's also the emotional side, the emotional reason that if you're under pressure, if people are saying, well, why can't you get this? And most people probably aren't saying that, but a school teacher might say that. Well, hopefully not. I know that sounds bad to school teachers. My mom, my grandpa, my daughter, school teachers, but there might be that situation where someone in authority or who is wanting to give you that information is saying, I don't know why you're not getting this. And then that can cause you to feel more scattered. And then it's like, how's that supposed to help you get it? I even received an email today. I'm laughing because the people pleaser part of me doesn't want to bother people. But at the same time, when I've purchased software from them or a software tool and it's not working and I've tried to follow the instructions, I have followed the instructions. I've tried it a few different ways in a few different browsers. I feel like I have the resource kind of brain where I can be resourceful and know how to do that kind of science project way. Is you try all these things, and if that doesn't work, then maybe it's really not working. Instead of it's your computer, it's your this or that. Anyway, so I wrote to him, this man, and I've written to him before about another tool I bought from him a month and a half earlier, and I ran into a similar problem. And it was for Pinterest, and I like it. But one of the things that it was supposed to be able to do, it wasn't doing on my computer. I was getting an error code, and there was a second option that he had, and that wasn't working either because it used to be allowed through Google, and now it's not. So I did enough go down the rabbit hole and read people's help articles. Oh, Google won't allow, that kind of thing. So anyway, so I wrote to him, showed him the screenshots, tried to do everything to show proof, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's not working for you. I'm updating that tool so that it has this possibility so you don't have to even use those two options anymore." And I thought, that's great. So a month later, I get the updated version, and it's true. It works. Well, I bought another tool that's similar for YouTube from him and ran into the same problem with this one part. And I thought, I wonder if he's developing the same kind of solution for his YouTube tool as he did for the Pinterest tool. And if I just wait, that's going to be happening. I don't need to worry about it. Or maybe that same tool in Pinterest, I can just take this information, put it in there, and it will work. So I tried that because I thought, it's possible. I don't want to bug him. He's got his own company. He's married with kids. I read his little bio. And I don't, he may say, oh yeah, it's in the works. It's that brain that just thinks of every idea. So I'm playing all this through my head in the last day or two. But yeah, it's in the works, but you could actually just take that file and put it into that upgrade in the Pinterest tool and it will work. So I thought, okay, but maybe it's Pinterest specific. I don't know. So it didn't work. But so I wrote to him to ask. And he's always been really kind. And I say that because I have written to him a few times, but I look at him, like he's a family man. I don't think he has a lot of employees. I'm making all this up in my mind. But anyway, he wrote back today and said, no, that won't work with the Pinterest tool. And why don't you just try using the Google option, which I didn't. I didn't tell him this time. I didn't expect him to remember me, but I didn't tell him, and I know that I can't use the Google tool because I ran into that a month ago with Pinterest. I just told him I got the error code, which I'd gotten before with the Pinterest one. Anyway, he wrote back and said, well, I just ran it through on the Google one and it works for me. Can I get your file in the error code? And so I wrote back and said, actually, I didn't use the Google one because that won't work for me. I don't pay for ads and it won't work unless I pay for ads. And it's supposed to work for free anyway. Anyway, I hope I'm not boring you because this isn't a story where you can picture things. But the part that I'm getting to is he was a little critical. And he could have just stopped. You know, when they say, when you're writing an email, look through and see what you can take out, and it will still get across the same point and be more friendly. Well, he had said earlier, a few paragraphs up, that apparently I was paying attention to this email because I remember it in detail. In one of the paragraphs, he said, no, it won't work on the Pinterest tool. That's specific to Pinterest. When he wrote below, and granted, he's the software developer, he understands the tech inside and out. I don't. I'm just following the steps. I feel like at my age, I'm pretty tech savvy, but that's not my college experience. That's not my thing. That's not my background. So he writes in his last paragraph, I don't know why you would even think it would work on the, and I'm trying not to give away too much on the other tool. It's not like you guys are going to find them, but I don't know why you would even think that works. And then the next few sentences are things I don't remember because they were more, specific to, that's created for this and this and for this and this. And not just it's created for Pinterest only, but like it wouldn't even work for that because of this, which was stuff that I wouldn't know because I don't develop software. But I just thought, you think that's very kind saying to someone who asks a question, because they do say, like there are no stupid questions. At least the nice people say that there are no stupid questions. To say, I don't know why you would even think that. So the people pleaser, peacemaker part of me was thinking, I don't know, maybe I should just not reply and not bug him. I got my answer that it doesn't work. But I wrote and said, I just wrote back and said, I didn't even try the Google one because when I tried it a few months ago, I learned this. I shared what I learned before. I didn't say, I could have said, remember I shared that with you 6 weeks ago, but I didn't expect him to know. I didn't want to sound combative. And I just said I didn't try that because I know it won't work for me since I don't run ads. And then I also said, I figured it didn't, it probably just worked for Pinterest, but I thought I should try all the options first and see without writing to you and then have you say, yeah, I'm working on it, but you could use this one. I said I wasn't sure how it worked and I didn't want to take up too much of your time. That here's the screenshot with the error code. Here's the file if you think you can get that to work, and the other way. And anyway, yeah. It kind of messed up my morning. And, we're not supposed to blame things on other people, but it does put you in a different state of, there's an emotional side of things that makes us less capable of doing what we might normally do, of our brain working at its optimal, which our optimal may be different than someone else's. And so when you get overwhelmed or when something takes you a little off track, even just you're trying to figure something out and someone's voice is impatient or, it shouldn't be that hard. I've actually seen that happen in family dynamics, like, why aren't you figuring this out? And then when they explain it, they say, and this is an adult to an adult, they start saying it more in slower, talking down, and that doesn't make somebody learn better by having someone talk to them in a demeaning way. So yeah, there's an emotional side of doing things. And yeah, when you go into something and you're trying to do something when you don't understand what you're doing, you're already scattered. And so you have the option when you don't have all the information of, well, I'll just try to figure it out. You're at the restaurant and you're just like, okay, I don't know where I'm supposed to order what, who I'm supposed to tell what kind of tortilla or what kind of protein or what kind of whatever, but I'll just start doing it. And when you're in that state of not understanding, that's not a restful state. and you're just kind of like throwing things out, and then you might be dropping things. That's me. I start dropping things out of my purse when that's going on. So we don't function as well when we don't have the information, but when we don't have a grasp on the information, it might be harder, to get it. And so, yeah. So if you're someone who has a hard time making sense of the information when you're just hearing it and you don't have the ability to write it down, asking questions or asking someone to spell a word for you can be helpful if seeing that word spelled is helpful, like someone's name or a street name or a city name, any of those things that you might need for directions. If you have your phone, I don't use the talking part. I don't talk into my phone like I probably could to pass on information. I do write things in notes, in the Notes app, and I've learned how to pin a note where I can just find it, and that's helpful. So if you don't see any words, sometimes being able to get the words down, especially if it's on a mobile device, because if you write it down in paper, it might be where you want it to be later on, but it might not. Any of you who write to-do lists or grocery shopping lists, I don't know if people do that on paper anymore, but as a teenager, as a child, I loved to go in the store with my mom's shopping list. I don't think I ever lost it. But as an adult, oh yeah, I lost my list in the store, before it got to the store, before it got to the car. So, yeah. And if you can do repetition, if you can rehearse something with somebody, if you can say to somebody else after someone else walks away, what was her name? Or how did she say we got there? Turn to the person next to you if you're in a workshop or a class and try to whisper and say, I missed this. Sometimes they miss it too. Not everyone's good at explaining, and not everyone, can receive it. But yeah, so your brain processes information in its own unique way. And the key is finding out what works and what doesn't. And if you're an adult with ADHD, the nice thing is you have a lot of experience. As a child, you might not have as much experience going into school. And teachers, if they know you have ADHD when you're a child and they have a good knowledge of it, they might be able to help you with that. But I feel like as an adult, you can look back and start going, oh yeah, no wonder that never made sense to me. Or no wonder I showed up wearing this when we weren't supposed to wear that. Or I showed up to a parking lot where we weren't supposed to go, going in that side when it specifically said in the email, don't go that way. No wonder I didn't turn in the field trip slip on time. I didn't store that information. It was handed to me while I was talking to somebody. The classic one is parking anywhere. It could be at the grocery store. I mean, somewhere like Disney World or Disneyland, some big place, they tell you, take a picture of Chip and Dale lot and C5 or whatever. Take a picture with your phone so you can find it or write it in your notes. Now I think they can even drop a pin when you park. I haven't tried that yet. And then you know where to go back. But if you try to rely on your memory, a lot of people can't do it. Some people totally can. Kudos to them. Even if you go to the grocery store, I often walk out, and I know the more I talk, the more scattered I sound, but I often walk out not even remembering which car I have because my car broke down a year ago. And even before then, sometimes my dad, my dad doesn't live here. My dad's on my mind right now. But sometimes my husband would take the car or somebody else or something. So often I come out, I'm trying to remember which car did I drive here? And then did I park far away? Where am I? Which parking lot am I in? And even just walking out from teaching yoga, I have to think, okay, so did I park on that side or that side? Sometimes it depends. In the morning, I like to park over there because that's where the sun comes out that time of day, and I'll walk back to a warm car. There's rationale to it. But we have to store that information so that we can use it later. If you're on the phone when you arrive somewhere in your car, or if you're listening to a podcast or music or something, it's really nice to end that call or take the earbud out, end what you're doing before you walk away from the car. One, you're more aware of your surroundings, which is important. I had someone almost literally run over me nicest guy, but the sun was in his eyes in the parking lot. I saw him get in his car and I had to stop. So I let him through. And then when I was walking in front of him, I did this is just like where nobody is. There's just no car, 6, 7 cars around. I kind of wave like, yeah, I'm walking, as he slowly goes around the corner of this little square in this parking area. Instead of staying slow or slowing down more as I crossed, he sped up because he didn't see me. Thankfully, I didn't have something in my ear. I wasn't bumbling with my keys. I have a whole system. Get out of the car, lock it, put the key in the thing, get out the other key to get in the building. It's a key fob, so it's a whole system. But thankfully, I was watching him because he sped up and I had to back up. And he was so sorry and really frightened by the whole situation because the sun was in his eyes into the day. And so take in as much information as you can, because any little distraction not only can make it so you don't know where your car is afterwards, whether it's just kind of walking around a little bit saying, is it here or there? I had one time with the person at Trader Joe's because I'd filled up 2 carts. And that was when I didn't remember which car I'd brought. So I was walking and walking and walking. I'm like, that's when it was embarrassing, was the other person is with you. Okay, I parked out here. I thought I parked on this. And then all of a sudden I went, oh, I didn't bring my usual car. I brought my husband's car. But yeah, one time I was at Stanford. So Stanford, if you haven't been there, is huge hospital, medical center area on the edge of campus. And which is important to know because this was the only time I actually went on campus. But I arrived for a doctor's appointment and parked in a parking garage. That I remember doing. I was talking to my husband's aunt on the phone, and I loved talking to her, and I knew there was a little bit of a walk between the parking garage and the doctor's office building. And I walked to the doctor's office building. And then I came back out and had absolutely no memory of even where the parking garage was. And I ended up on campus. I was walking around so much. I finally, because I think I went into the parking garage, didn't see it, went up and down, walked again, looking further, ended up on campus, walked back around. It was almost an hour of walking around. And oh, yeah. And it's confusing because you can't even know which floor you're in sometimes as you're walking up and down. I thought, never again talk on the phone as you walk away. And nothing got stored in my brain at all. And even the little clicking of the, to make your lights go on wouldn't work if you're not even close. So anyway, so what can you do? Well, okay. I talked a little bit about making a picture in your brain. And there's actually a term for it. I call it a mental picture, but some people call it mental mapping. And it helps you develop that spatial relationship. You get a mental picture, a map of this, then that, then this, and that. Because that's what a map does. It shows you where you're going, and it shows you where you need to go. And if you think of how it works for you to follow a map, does it work for you? Some people it works so much better. For me, it helps to know the steps, to not just follow a GPS that says, turn here, in 1 mile, turn there. I like to look and see the main roads before I go, if I'm familiar with them. Oh, I'm going to go on that road eventually. I'm going to do this, get at least an idea. And when they first started having GPS on cars and stuff, I never actually bought the little unit like from Costco or whatever when that was first. But when it actually came with the car, I didn't like using it because it would just kind of tell you what to do next. And it was like getting information to my brain that I had to make sense of on the spot, sometimes really fast, and then you get off on this exit and then you turn right and it's like, that's too much. And I would, for at least a year or so, I would still print out MapQuest or Google Maps or whatever and have the piece of paper on the passenger seat and be able to look and see. And then in 2 miles, you'll turn right on this. And it was so nice for me. My mental map likes to see the steps. But if I'm looking now, because all of our phones have the GPS, I'll take in that information first before I go in the car. And it's important for you to know how it works, because if it works for you to go step by step by step and not know the whole picture, that is good. But if you need to know the whole picture, you can see the written instructions and you can see if okay. Or you can actually look at the map and kind of get out and see the whole thing that's going to happen. My husband, it drives him crazy if he can't see that whole picture the whole time. And he'd much rather see that than see the road by road. And not every app allows that, so that bugs him. He's kind of trying going like this on his phone, and it's not spreading out. I'm doing the little, spread out thing with your fingers. But that's what you need to do in your brain, is figure out, I need a visual guide. I need to see it in my mind, whether it's actually a map and the dots go together, whether it's a list, and even just kind of seeing the chunks. Like in a trip, you might do that. Like for the first 2 hours, we'll be on the freeway. And then we're going to get off on this country road. And so you kind of know the story of the freeway part. Maybe I'll see some cows, if it's somewhere you haven't been, and da-da-da-da-da. After you've been somewhere, you might have a mental map that's helpful from your memories. You might not. It might take a few times where you go, oh yeah, this is familiar. And it is helpful, like if you see, and there's a Shell station on the corner. In the olden days, people would say that, and then you're going to turn right on the street. There's an old church there. Now, the Google Maps doesn't tell you that. They don't tell you there's an old church, or Apple Maps. You can zoom in and see. But even if you're using an app, looking for those things, if you're going to do it again, you will be more relaxed if you don't have to rely on the GPS the whole time. And so if it's a direction that you're going to need to take multiple times, start to look for things like that. When I turn here, what else is here? Oh, there's a McDonald's. Oh, there's that. And that can help you be more relaxed and not get lost and not add more time. Oh my goodness. So just kind of seeing the whole story, the whole how, if it's steps to do something like dye your hair or make a recipe or something like that, it's nice to see the method. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to put some stuff in the fridge. I'm going to saute something this. I'm going to use the oven. You get that picture, whether you know the specifics or not. And then it's also helpful to see the steps. If you don't like seeing on a screen, print it out or use your cookbook or whatever. So what's going to happen is important, the order it's going to happen. And if it's sauteing and you've never sauteed before, you're new to cooking, maybe understanding that first. All those things can help the experience be a little more enjoyable. Actually following the steps, even if you have the information in your mind, it is helpful if you don't have distractions. Because as I've gotten older, if I'm not paying attention fully, if I'm trying to talk, like on a Marco Polo or on the phone, that's when I make mistakes. If I'm just listening to something like a podcast, a TV show or something, I'm good. That I've forgotten salt. I make bread. Salt makes it not rise as well, or it makes it rise too much, and it doesn't taste very good. And so I end up salting the bread afterwards because I don't want to waste it. I haven't forgotten yeast, thankfully. I've forgotten sugar, and I don't know. It's lame. Whew, yeah. Do you do things like that? Or have you ever done a load of laundry and realized you never put laundry soap in? I started doing that with the dishwasher yesterday, and then I opened it to put something else up in, and I thought, I don't see any bubbles. I think I forgot the dishwashing little packet. But learning how you remember, and and people talk about, some people are more auditory learners, some people are more visual learners. I think all of the senses can come into play in different ways. And even when I teach yoga, it's so fascinating, because a lot of what I'm showing people to do or doing with them is we do this on the right side, and then we do it on the left side, we do it on the right, left. And I usually start with the right side. I only don't have one class. If I start on the left side, they can see themselves in the mirror. And then that might help them know what to do without me moving around. So I might do that. But I usually start on the right side. But what happens is I'm also mirror cueing to them. So if I'm telling them right, I'm doing it on my left. And and then often it's not just like, which side are we starting with? It's which elbow this is, which one, So a lot of times, even, because I know not everybody understands right-left cues very well. And then your top arm or turn toward facing the front knee or whatever it is. So I try to do those for kinds of things for different kinds of learners. But what happens when I do forget and I realize I've forgotten, it's usually because of how it feels or what I see once I do it. So like if I'm going into a twist and I twist and I think, no, I was looking that way last time. We did it the wrong way. Or I feel it in my shoulder and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? So there are different things that give us clues to you're remembering wrong that we may not even think about, which is kind of interesting. Like it could be you're driving, you've probably experienced this, you're driving and you're thinking, wait, this looks wrong. That's a good indication too. Good indication. So anyway, oh my goodness, I have no idea how long I've been talking. I think I've told you now that I'm using different software and stuff. Let's see if this tells me. Oh, a little longer than the past two. Not as long as some. But yeah, there are a lot of ways to remember information that you're trying to process. And I'll talk about that on a different episode and I'm talking more long-term, like if you're in school or if you want to be good at something, you want to be able to remember it and get better at it and take that information. Like for teaching yoga, I really wanted to learn about anatomy and I've tried lots of ways and I do learn it and understand it, but I've come to the conclusion that that's just not the kind of information that I have at my fingertips in my brain. It's just not. I've done presentations on the shoulder girdle to learn all the bones and muscles. I knew it while I did it. I knew it while I prepared it. I don't know any of it now, except for this is called a chromium process. You can't see it. I got to move. Okay, so right here. Okay, if you lift your arm up, straight up from the front, there's a bone at the front of the shoulder girdle that points forward like a bird beak. And some of them are curved like that kind of bird beak. Some of them are more straight and go straight forward. Some point up a little bit. Our bone structure is different. A chromium process, I think I remember that one because it was just so fascinating to learn that when people are trying to lift both arms up over their head, some people can go back way because they don't have that bone stopping it from happening. At some point, the bones are stopping your body from being like goo, like a slime, or I want to say a jelly, but nobody knows. They're not really called jellyfish. They're called jellies. If you live near the I wouldn't say nobody knows, but Monterey Bay Aquarium, they teach us that. They're jellies, and yet people still say jellyfish. But anyway, if you wanted to be more like that, you wouldn't have bones. So you have your bones to stop your arm from doing things it shouldn't do, but it stops in different places in our bones and our hips, even our ankles, different places, from how our bones are shaped. So I remember that one, because if your chromium process points downward or really curved downward, and you can't get your arms straight up over your head, that may be why. You could practice yoga for 1,000,000 years, and you're going to be nice and open, and you're, feel good in your tissues, but not feel bad that your arms don't go up as high as somebody else's, because it affects how you do back bends and all kinds of things, which is kind of fascinating. So yeah, if you're curious about something enough, maybe you'll remember. But I tried everything with anatomy. I took online courses where I could listen, watch, stand up, do. And I even bought a book, which I love, if you want to learn about the anatomy, and maybe you could do this better, but I just didn't have the patience to finish it. But it's called the Anatomy Coloring Book. It's on Amazon. And what's cool is if you want to learn about every tissue, every bone, everything, it not only has it there for you, but you can color it. And then they have all the words for it written in balloon letters. So you can actually color every single letter and say it while you're doing it. And it does help, but it just was a lot. I should bring that to church. That could be my coloring book. Maybe it would help. I think I loaned it to my daughter when she was taking anatomy. And I think she's finished that class. So I'll ask her if she has it. But yeah, it might work for you, or you might actually complete it if you really need to learn anatomy for whatever your schooling is or career. I didn't have to know anatomy to that point for yoga, but I wanted to because I saw other teachers where that was their strength. And I thought, I want to do that too. I was smart in school. I got good grades. Can't remember that. I just can't. Yeah. But I know what it feels like to open in my shoulders. And really, none of the people in my classes care if I know all that stuff. I just wanted to know it. So, yeah. I guess that is it for today. I'm still working on my website if you ever go there. It's not like you're all just leaving the podcast and going to my website. But if you want to see it, if you want to see what a website template looks like before people complete it, that's what I'm doing. It's still renee-allen.com. I don't even have the podcast page set up, and all my podcasts go there now, I think. But just go to your favorite place and look. You know where to find podcasts. You're not the person who's trying to find me through that page. But it's a lot. I'm working through it though. I'm making progress. One tiny, tiny, tiny step at a time. So I hope you don't feel frustrated, and I hope you can find little connect the dot moments for yourself in how do I learn? What do I learn well? And in the things that are hard, in what situations are they hard? What kind of information is hard? And what can I do to make that, not so I can learn everything. You might give yourself a pass like I have with anatomy. I even have an app where it shows in 3D. It's another one that's fascinating because you can take off layers like the skin, and you can take off layers and see the muscles, take off layers and see the bones. I've tried it all. But you can give yourself a pass. Like, it's okay if I don't know this, even if I still want to learn about it and I find it fascinating, I don't have to retain it. Or if I want to retain it, I need to retain it. What is a way that can be helpful to me? What can I do so I'm not frustrated? And recognize that when you're out in public, it is harder. It is harder when there's eyes on you. And children, like if you have teenagers or young adult kids, sometimes they get frustrated with you too. Mom. They've been more understanding since they know I have ADHD. So that's nice. I know there was one more thing. After every episode, I think of, I should have said this. I would have loved to have included that. And I started making a Google Doc with some of those things. So there'll be new episodes. But yeah, I just want you to know it's not just you, and it is how your brain works. And your brain does work. It's just in a different way. And finding the way that it works for you is the most important thing. Or giving yourself a break when it didn't work out so well and people were watching and wondering. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I'm liking the sitting back on the couch thing. And I appreciate you being here. I think I'm going to have a new strategy for YouTube, where the YouTube video, I was releasing the video before the podcast episode, just because I couldn't wait. I was kind of excited about it. But I just read that your video does better. Just a little tip for any ADHD YouTubers out there. I wouldn't say I just read it. I heard it I watched it on a YouTube podcast, but I really have a hard time taking in information from a YouTube podcast. So sometimes I take the transcription and read the steps, the bullet points. But basically, if you schedule it to send 24 hours or later afterwards, YouTube finds the place to put it that's the most available to the people that would want to see your video. So I'm probably going to give that another day for that to post. But my actual podcast that just has the audio will still go to YouTube because it does from my podcast center company, whatever kind of company you call it. But yeah, thank you. And I'll be back in a couple days. So I keep going back and forth Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday. I have ADHD, so it might be a little bit of all of the above. But I do want to have an episode out for you 2 times a week. So thanks for being here. I will talk to you again. Let me know if you ever have any questions. You can DM me on Instagram. I know my website's not working well right now. You could also write to me, Renee at inspiringwomenadhd.com. And I'm happy to talk about things that might interest you or you might have questions about. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.